Hey everybody, welcome to day 10 of the Fill My Cup Challenge. I'm Lelo. I hope that this past 10 days has been good for you. I hope that you've enjoyed this as much as I have. I've learned a lot in this process and, I'm excited. I'm excited to enter 2024 sober-minded. I think I always say the festive season can be amazing, but it can also be a time where we lose our footing. And so I hope that you guys are journeying with me and that you're getting something out of this. So I've been reflecting on Lamentations 3, right? Typically, we know the scripture that says, God's mercies are new every morning. And, we love that scripture. But just to put it into context, Jeremiah is lamenting before God, right? He's crying out before God. He's wailing before God. He's complaining before God about how hard life has been, right? Now, this is a man of God that God had given a prophetic ministry, and he was a great prophet, and he's just crying out before God, saying how much God has forsaken him, how God has just dragged him to the lions. Like, he's just really having a hard time. And so he's lamenting. And we get to verse 19, and I'll just read it. It says, I remember my affliction and my wandering, the bitterness and the gall. I well remember them, and my soul is downcast within me. Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for him, right? I love it. I'm reading that in the NIV, but I want to read it again to you in the Message translation. And in the Message translation, it says, sorry, I'm just reading from my laptop. It says, I'll never forget the trouble, the utter lostness, the taste of ashes, the poison I've swallowed. I remember it. Oh, how well I remember the feeling of hitting the bottom. But there's one other thing I remember, and remembering, I keep a grip on hope. God's loyal love couldn't have run out. His merciful love could have never dried up. They're created new every morning. How great your faithfulness. I'm sticking with God. I say it over and over. He's all I've got left. And I love that scripture and I love it in particular, the Message translation, because here's a man who is lamenting, who is complaining, who is crying out before God. And he gets to verse 21 and he says, yet this I call to mind, right? And therefore I have hope, okay? So he's basically saying, I'm complaining, I'm crying out, things are really difficult, but when I bring to mind the loyal love of God, when I remember that by his great love we are not consumed, I have hope. I want to ask you a question today. What are you meditating on, right? What are you thinking about? What are you bringing to remembrance about God? Because that is what will determine whether or not your heart is filled with hope or it's filled with despair. Jeremiah was in the midst of a hard season. Yet he says, this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Sometimes we're struggling to have hope because of what we're not putting to mind, right? Like, it almost makes me think that sometimes if we want to have a condition of hope, if we want to hold on to hope, we need to change our mind's meditation. We need to change what we're thinking about. We need to harness what's in our minds. We need to fill our minds with things that are good, that remind us of God's love, that remind us of God's goodness, right? So he's filled with hope because he remembers that God's loyal love could have never run out, right? He says that his merciful love could have never dried up. They're created new every morning. How great is your faithfulness, right? And I just think that, in very hard seasons, because life can get hard, right? Maybe you at the end of 2023 right now and you've had quite a ride, right? Like, it's been hard. Today I want to challenge you to put to mind the loyal love of God. I love loyal love. I love hearing those two words together about God, is that his love is loyal. It means that no matter how hard the situation is, I want you to know that his love towards you has not changed. His love towards you is still loyal. It means that no matter what, you can trust that God will show up. You can trust that God will come to you and that he'll fulfill his promise to you. Don't give up, right? Don't give up. Jeremiah at the end says, I'm sticking with God. And I say this over and over. I will wait for him, right? Because when he remembers God's loyal love, he's like, you know what? My circumstances might be hard, but that doesn't change who God is. That doesn't change God's character. That doesn't change God's heart towards me. His love is loyal. He's consistent. He's faithful. And so I'm going to wait here. I'm going to stick it out. Don't give up. Don't give up. That's my encouragement to you today. No matter how hard things get, you can trust that God's heart towards you remains the same. He loves you dearly. And I just can't wait to speak to you guys tomorrow again. Bye-bye.